All right, so we have another example where we are going to write and solve a two-step equation. So we have Miss Byers, and she is making 5 costumes that each require 1 3/8 yards of blue fabric and a certain amount of red fabric. She will use 8 3/4 yards in all. So we need to write and solve an equation to determine the number of yards of red fabric, which is going to be indicated by R, that she will need for each costume. Which equation can be used to determine how many yards of red fabric are needed for each costume? That is part A. And then part B, they want us to tell them how many yards of red fabric will be needed for each of the costumes. All right, so the first thing that I notice is looking at the information, there's 5 costumes. So I know that we are going to be multiplying by 5 because we're making 5 of those costumes, and each of those costumes are going to have 1 3/8 blue fabric and a certain amount of red fabric, which they have told us is going to be indicated by R. So each one of those is going to have 1 3/8, which is the blue fabric, plus the red fabric. Okay. And then what we're going to do with that is we're multiplying this by 5 so that we can have the 5 costumes. When we do that, we should have a total of 8 3/4 yards that are going to be used for all the costumes. All right, so that's what we're looking for in our answer choices. And when we look at our answer choices, we see that A is going to be the one that matches what we're looking for. Right. So A and B are both saying, hey, we're multiplying by 5. The reason that we are not going to select B is because we're subtracting the red fabric, and that's not what we're doing. So we want to cancel that one out. In terms of C and D, they definitely are not going to be the correct one because they are multiplying by 1 3/8. So this would be saying, hey, I'm making 1 3/8 costume. That's what we're saying here. So this is definitely not going to be it either. So our correct answer again is going to be answer choice A. Now, part B, they say, well, hey, how many yards of red fabric is she going to need for each of these costumes? So I'm going to show you 2 ways to solve for this one. And remember, either way works. You should still come out with the same answer. So the first one I'm going to use is expanding our distributive, using our distributive property so that we can expand our expression. So what we have is going to be 5 times 1 3/8. And when we multiply that, 5 times 1 3/8, so we have 5 times 1 ABC 3, ABC 8. We end up with 6 7/8. Okay. And then we're going to multiply 5 times R. That gives me 5 R's. I have a positive times a positive. So my first term is going to be a positive. And then I have a positive times a positive. So the second term is also going to be a positive. And then that is all going to be equal to 8 3/4. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is just me personally, I would prefer to change fractions to decimals. If they are terminating decimals, you can do that. Remember, if it's a repeating decimal, then you'll want to keep it in the fraction form so that you can have the most accurate answer. So let's look and see. If I convert this into a decimal, so remember, you can hit the second and then the FD button or the backspace, and that will convert it. And it is, it's a terminating decimal. So I'm going to write 6.875 plus 5R, and that is going to be equal to 8 3/4. So hopefully you know your quarters by now. So 3/4 would be 0.75. So this is the same thing as 8.75. Okay, that looks a little cleaner to me. Now, the question I want to ask is, do we have our variable isolated? Well, it's not because we're multiplying by 5. In addition to that, we're also adding 6.875. So we're going to work our way up in reverse order using PEMDAS for us to solve for it. So I'm going to first start off by subtracting 6.875. And remember, if you're adding or subtracting, you want to make sure that your value on the side with the variable has a result of 0. So there we go. So we've subtracted 6.875 from both sides. And so what we are left with is going to be 5R. And that is going to be equal to, let's see, 8.75. We're going to subtract 6.875. And we're left with 1.875. All right, and now is the variable isolated? No, because we're multiplying by 5. So we're going to undo the multiplication by dividing both sides by 5. When we do that, we have 5 divided by 5. That leaves me with 1r, and that is going to be equal to, so 1.875 divided by 5, that is going to be equal to 0.375. Okay. If we wanted to convert this back into a fraction, you could. The answer would be 3/8. So, or 3/8. All right, so that is how you would solve it. This is our correct answer. Now, I am going to show you the other way that you can solve it. So remember, if this works for you, you can stop the video. But if you want that second method, just go on and follow along with us. So I'm going to rewrite the same problem. I'm going to write 5 times 1 3/8 plus r. That's going to be equal to 8 3/4. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I notice that I am multiplying, okay? We're still going to use PEMDAS in reverse order, but we're not starting with addition or subtraction because there is no addition or subtraction outside of the parentheses, right? So we're going to just start off by dividing both sides by 5. That multiple of 5, we're going to cut it out. So 5 divided by 5 leaves me with 1. So now I'm left with 1 3/8. So 1 3/8. Maybe I should make this a little bigger. Okay, so we're left with 1 3/8. And that is going to be equal to 8 3/4 divided by 5. So 8 ABC 3 ABC 4 divided by 5 gives me 1 3/4. Okay. Oh, I forgot something. So we have 1 3/8 plus r. Don't forget that. That is going to be equal to 1 3/4. Now, I want to get rid of these fractions. So remember, if possible, I don't want to have to work with fractions. So what would 1 3/8 be as a decimal? Oh, it's a terminating decimal, so I'm going to use that instead. So 1.375 plus r is going to be equal to 1.75. Again, you should know your quarters by now, so 3/4 is 0.75. All right, is our variable by itself? No, it's not, because we are adding 1.375. So remember, I'm going to still use PEMDAS, but in reverse order. And of course, if you're adding or subtracting, you want the value on the side with the variable to become a 0. So this is a positive 1 in 375 thousandths. I'm going to subtract that out. So 1.375 from both sides, minus 1.375. All right. So what we're left with is r is going to be equal to 0.375. So same answer we got before. And if you wanted to convert it into a fraction, you could, of course. So it's going to become 3/8. So those are two ways that you can solve it. Remember, you can go on and use the distributive property, or you can just get rid of that multiple by dividing both sides by that multiple so that is gone.